Before we begin, thank you very much to hello everyone for joining the Patreon campaign. See, look, someone found a way of getting my old intro back in there. It's not much of an intro, right? That's the whole joke behind this. Like, you guys have been doing this for over 300 days now. We might hit a year if this keeps up. If we make it through January, it will be a year full of shout-outs where I don't get to do the normal intro. And the normal intro is pathetic. The normal intro is super lame, and we don't really need to revisit it. But for some reason, that's the joke of keeping me from saying 2 words. But thank you very much for the for the contribution. Thank you for the fun shout out. This is going to continue for a while. I have a backlog again. Thank you everyone for the support. Let's talk about the Skybound Transformer comics. So I was debating whether or not I should review these as they came out. And I might still do that. I might still just do a full review that is just on issue 2. But issue 1 didn't do too well in the views. So let me know in the comments below, after you watch this video. Let me know in the comments below if that would be something you'd be into for me to just keep an eye on those books for you. But there is one particular thing about issue 2 that I think is a really important topic to bring up, because it is one of the most refreshing things I've seen Transformers do in a while, but also one of the most familiar. And it's weird that way. We'll get to that in a bit. So, issue 1 of the Skybound comics, I told you I was a little bit concerned, because on the one hand, we've got an Optimus Prime that knows how to throw a German suplex and a ripcord lariat. So I'm already fascinated by this Optimus Prime and his apparent knowledge of Japanese pro wrestling. But I am also curious because this is made by the same company and creative minds behind The Walking Dead. So I expected going into chapter 1 that we'd see a little bit more of a gritty, more brutal take on Transformers, and that's exactly what we got at the end. So after a very familiar startup, we all crashed on Earth, we get woken up in modern times, Spike and Carly are here with new designs, but for the most part, yeah, it just kind of felt like running back the original comic book / the original cartoon, outside of this element of brutality that was being introduced. And yeah, okay, we're in for a much more gritty Transformer experience. And to be honest with you, that's just kind of what I braced myself for, and it's one reason why I didn't plan a review of issue 2. And then we got to issue 2. And now that we've gotten past, like, the origin thing, now we're starting to get the real meat behind what these comic books are going to be and the direction the story is going to go in. So now we've got the tone. Now we've got the direction. And you know what? Okay, there's going to be some interesting things. There's going to be some different things going on. Again, I'm not going to talk about it in depth here because we might still do a review of it. But the one thing that stood out, and this floated all over Twitter last week, like, for some reason, like, people just started taking notice of this. And it was Optimus Prime that everyone started paying attention to. So, I mean, it starts with this frame where Optimus is actually admiring the beauty of the planet Earth. And this is always fascinating to me because you think what they consider beautiful will be a very different perspective than what you or I do, because, you know, they're used to an all metallic world. You know, there's, you know, no water, no greenery, no plant life. So this is an interesting thing. It's interesting to see that an alien would find our world beautiful. And then I think about it, like when you see like alien landscapes in video games or movies, you can acknowledge how beautiful they are even though they're completely alien to you. So it's kind of makes sense. And it's good to point out, you know, that Optimus is kind of in marvel of this world of ours, because it's so different than his. And then you see that little crunch. Yeah, I'm going to spare you the actual frame of what happened. But what happens is Optimus Prime accidentally tramples a deer. And the reaction is immediate sorrow and remorse. This is a creature that Optimus Prime does not know. He does not know how intelligent they are. He does not know, for all he knows, deer are the dominant species of the planet. Keep in mind, he's barely encountered anything at this point. Just 2 humans. So, all he knows is he accidentally took a life. And this is the reaction. On his knees and grieving. And this is interesting. It's interesting because it goes all the way back to the origins of Optimus Prime. It goes all the way back to who he originally was and the original vision for Optimus Prime in a way that we haven't done in a long, long time. And it's kind of amazing to realize that, like, this should be, like, the compassion. That's the key word here. The compassion that should be a key tenet to Optimus Prime, his defining trait. And it's actually really rare to see it depicted anymore. And it takes this scene for us to actually realize, hey, wait a minute. We haven't seen Optimus like this in a long time. This goes all the way back to the very origins of Optimus Prime. His first bio, his first full bio in like the 80s Transformers universe comic books that basically is like the character bible for the entirety of the Marvel comic franchise. It points out that his one true weakness is he's too compassionate, and that can be taken advantage of. Here we have a key example of this. And it's so rare now. And it's so rare, and guess what? We're going to retread some old ground here. Because we know why this is rare. We know why we don't see this anymore. Hi. How you doing? So the live action Optimus Prime. Now keep in mind, fictionally, Transformers was in a weird spot. We had the 3 animes where, Optimus was very much, like a Japanese style anime hero. You didn't really, outside of just, taking care of a few humans, you didn't really see him protecting cities. You didn't see him, interacting with humanity all that much, or really just showing too much concern for the planet Earth outside of stopping any plots that would harm it, but not really like connecting to the human society the way Transformers did in like the G1 cartoon, for instance. So really, the only public perception that most really cared, and keep in mind, those were not very well viewed cartoons, and I don't just mean like opinion-wise, I mean by view count. So the public perception of Optimus Prime at this point is he's just an old 80s hero that was just this really strong and, gentle leader. So here we take the Michael Bay version of Optimus Prime, who is very much the war hero type. He is go in, slaughter first, ask questions later. He is the action movie hero style of hero where he is the hero because he is the last one that walks off the battlefield alive. And he is a far more brutal, far less caring version of Optimus Prime than we had ever seen. This is an Optimus Prime that openly took a shot and murdered a human being. Even if it is no Optimus Prime ever did that. Even when the human was evil and actively helping the Decepticons, he never just openly took a shot at a human. And we see this with like the way he dispatches his enemies. He is very kill happy. He is very quick to the kill. And when you're dealing with, a war character, yeah, that makes sense. Kill your enemy quickly so they don't kill you or anybody else. But that's never who Optimus Prime was before. It went against the original concept of the character. It's like watching Batman wielding a gun. Thanks, Fortnite. It's like Spider-Man resorting to murder. It's like seeing Captain America working for Russia. It's just not who he is. And it was always weird, and the live action Prime has never struck true to me as an Optimus Prime because of that. He just seems like a pretender wearing the name and the colors. You know, the things that made Optimus Prime a great hero aren't there. You know, and it was upsetting. Keep in mind, this is also an Optimus who routinely gives up on humanity because, well, it's not worth the trouble. And to be fair, he has reasons. The live-action movies are where humanity was against the Transformers the most. They did not care about Autobot or Decepticon, so not that he didn't have reasoning, but it was weird to see an Optimus Prime who's just kind of looked at Earth and went, okay, yeah, you're on your own, we're out. I'm sick of trying. I'm just sick of trying with you people. I'm leaving. Because it's not who Optimus is, right? And the bad side is this kind of bled into all the other Optimus Primes later on. Well, most of them. Animated escaped it. But it started bleeding into other Optimus Primes because this is the most popular depiction of Prime, or at least the most well-known at the time. So it kind of felt like Optimus Prime was losing who he used to be. We take a look at Transformers Prime, and we do have an Optimus Prime who is concerned about humanity and protecting the planet Earth, but he is far more like the old war general than he used to be. And there's few moments of levity, and he's just far more serious. And again, there's no real show of that compassion that made him, the original Optimus Prime what he was. This also kind of bleeds into the IDW Optimus Prime. Toward the end of 1.0, we got an Optimus Prime that, frankly, I was really kind of uncomfortable with. Again, a more serious take, a more gruff, serious take on Optimus Prime. But at this point in the story, toward the end of IDW, you had an Optimus Prime who had actual worshippers, people who wore faceplates and considered him a true living Prime amongst them. He was a god, literally, to some of these people. And he went with it. Because it served his own means, he went with it. And the story they kind of told was whether or not he was buying into his own Messiah complex, or if it really was just to make sure he had people loyal to his cause. It was bizarre. I felt like while we were watching Megatron go back to his roots and actually seek redemption, here was an Optimus Prime that, honestly, if the story went further and pushed this harder, I could have almost believed a story where this is how Optimus Prime becomes corrupted. Which is not an Optimus Prime story I ever want to hear. But it felt that way. It felt like that was the start of it. Now, obviously, compassion wins the day. Hey, we hugged Unicron into submission. So, okay. A point for compassion. But it was still like this really weird take on Prime. We're starting to get the classic back. We're starting to get the classic Optimus Prime back. Alan Tudyk is doing a really good job of bringing just like a warm energy to Optimus Prime that has been lacking in recent years. And he just comes across more like the heroic character that he always was meant to be. He does still have maybe a little bit of like the old war hero element to him, which I guess isn't a terrible thing to include. But you do have an Optimus Prime here who is more generally concerned with humanity and, again, protecting Earth. This kind of gets back to where we started. And when I think about where we started, what I mean is like all the way back to episode 1 of Transformers, like literally the first fiction you had. Literally the first fiction Transformers had. This is the end scene from episode 1 where all Optimus Prime knows about these two things in the water that we will later call Spike and Sparkplug. All he knows is they are living creatures that called out for help. That's it. Doesn't know if they're good or bad. Doesn't know if they'll be kind to him. Doesn't know if they're even the dominant species of the planet. All he knows is life is in danger. I'm going to go save them. And that's a great thing to see. And we saw that again in issue 1 of the Skybound comics. And again, like that is where Optimus Prime feels like Optimus Prime once more. Now, in issue 2, we do see this moment of compassion for the dead deer. And it's to contrast what Starscream is doing, which is flying around and gleefully splatting humans like water balloons. Keep in mind, they have very little energon at this point, so Starscream is burning up fuel literally just for just to have fun. She's just Starscream on Earth in Skybound is kind of like the kid who found out what happens when you combine the sun, a magnifying glass, and an ant hill. You know, it's gleeful in how sadistic he is. And it shows, in the purpose of the comic book, is to show just how vastly different these two are. The two current leaders of their factions. So I get it. I get why they did it. But the side effect of doing so, the side effect of demonstrating these two great extremes, is we get an Optimus Prime who actually feels like Optimus Prime again. Where he actually realizes how fragile this planet is, how delicate its life is. And even a lower form of life, even on an accident, is just tragic to him. Imagine driving in your car and you hit a bump, like realize, oh, I just hit a squirrel. You know, I've done that in my car. I've hit a squirrel driving. It happens. You know, you can't help it sometimes. You know, and I felt horrible. I mean, of course I felt horrible. Something just died because of the thing I was driving. But this is like if you, like, pulled over and had to take a few minutes because you were so shaken by it. That is Optimus Prime in this scene. You know, just the overall realization of, like, how precious life is on this planet all of a sudden. And just the immediate regret and remorse. It shows that level of compassion that I didn't realize Optimus Prime had been missing. Obviously, there's the live-action movie Prime and his overt brutality. But I forgot. I've seen so many Optimus Primes at this point, I forgot this is who he was supposed to be. So now all of a sudden, I'm actually really looking forward to where Skybound is going with this, because it's clear from this scene alone, they know the assignment. They know what they're supposed to be putting into this Optimus Prime. And I'm actually really glad we got a scene like this to actually demonstrate, yeah, this is kind of what we have in mind for him. Because this could genuinely be one of the best depictions of Optimus Prime we've had in a long time. It just makes me really curious about where we go from here. So, that's the scene that shook Transformers Twitter for like a solid week. There are my overall thoughts on it and why it is so important that Optimus had this moment. So, again, Skybound is looking good. I'm going to be looking forward to issue 3 a lot. So, thank you guys for watching. I will see you next time.
We parlay with the captain.
You think a werecroc is going to listen to elvish rules of piracy?
Of course it would be the freaking elves that invented parlay.
I had to think of a quick replacement for the French.
Oh.